Welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by critiquing current players. I am one of your three co-hosts, Derek Kubicek, and today we are going to be looking at episode 6 of season 46 of Survivor, Cancel Christmas. I'm joined today by two lovely co-hosts, Ryan, Stacy, and returning to us from a business trip, Josh Wessler. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. Fun episode tonight. Mergatory episode, so, nice and chaotic. But really, there was only two names up there with like a third one kind of whispered about. So yeah, it was nice. It wasn't too chaotic. It was fun.
I'm doing good as well. I had lots of business that I accomplished.
Business.
Business. Did you go to the stock market and do a business?
I did.
Did you go to the business store?
I did.
Cool.
It was fun.
But before we get into the episode proper, we got a new 5-star review. And as always, if you leave a 5-star review and it's generally a nice one and it's appropriate, we'll read them out. So to Suspenseroni on March 27th.
Great name.
Subject line, yes. Love the podcast. I appreciate the detailed recaps that help me learn more about the game. Honestly, I sometimes watch a Survivor season just so I can listen to the podcast about it. Y'all are awesome. That's a compliment of the highest order.
That's nice.
Knowing that someone is watching Survivor because they want to listen to us and not listening to us because they watch Survivor, like I said, that's highest order. I mean, upper echelon, top tier. Thank you. Thank you, Suspenseroni. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. That was so nice.
I love it.
The other bit of business we have to do before we get into this current episode is last week Josh wasn't here. Because he knew his winner pick was going home and he didn't want to face the music. So Jem is out of the game. We talked about this a little bit last week. Josh, you have to make a new winner pick. And we talked to you before we watched this episode, so this is on the up and up. This is honest. Josh, who's your winner pick?
Yeah, I kind of live messaged these guys as I was watching the episode and put out all this stuff. And I will quick update people as well on the other awards too. I won't take up too much time so we can get right into this episode. So first, I'll lead off with that actually. My best player from the episode was Q. My worst player was Mariah, who I thought was going to be going next here in this episode was Kenzie. My two people I aligned with you guys were, for Who Can't Win, were Liz and Venus. And then I did miss a big episode because not only did my winner pick go home, but you guys also recapped the best and the worst of the pre-merge.
Yep.
I won't go into all my details just to save everyone some time, but I did give my award for best player of the pre-merge to Charlie and my worst player of the pre-merge to Venus. And finally, the grand finale, my new winner pick.
Venus.
No. My new winner pick is Maria.
So you join Derek.
Yes.
Yep, I'm joining Derek. There's a few good candidates out there. I was really tempted to go with Hunter, but I think that he will have a hard time getting to the end. So going with Maria.
Okay. We'll see how this goes for everyone. But so anyway, back to this episode now. Let's get back on. We're canceling Christmas here. It's the War on Christmas. It's a special episode.
We rarely have so much housekeeping.
What did you guys think of the episode?
Well, right, like you mentioned at the top of the podcast, it was good baseline Survivor. We didn't have too much gimmicky production interference going on, unless you count the Mergatory as production interference. I think I speak for everyone on this podcast that we're okay with the mechanics as they've been in 45 and 46 now. We're not changing history, which Jeff has promised he won't do again. Everyone understands what's happening going in. Everybody gets a vote. Some people earn the merge one way and the other people have to survive a vote. So I liked this episode. It was good baseline Survivor.
Yeah, me too. And it didn't feel like it was this giant consequential vote. I think that's something that one of the castaways said, is that this vote is going to change the game. Honestly, I didn't really think so. I thought that there were a couple of good options out there that people were okay with seeing leave this game, and it wasn't going to be this huge, tide shifting vote that, a group of people is going to be screwed over, which honestly I kind of like for a mergatory, just because, you have your options and then we move.
I like it. I'm a fan. Should we get into it?
Let's
do it.
So spoiler alerts for the episode in 3, 2, 1. Well, guys, I lost my winner pick.
At least
Well,
you're here to face the music.
Yeah, hey,
me and Ryan picking our new winner picks in the same episode.
Yep. But yeah, I'm here to take it like a real Survivor fan. It's fine. I don't really mind having my winner pick go out like ever, just because as long as it's entertaining Survivor, I'm fine with it. It's not that big a deal. I'm just dying and crying on the inside a little bit, but I'm putting on a brave face for you guys.
We're proud of you.
All right, so the episode proper, we're going to go back to sea again. Mariah is going to get back to camp with the others, and she's like, what do I do next? Should I stick with the group and stay loyal to Siga and be on the bottom of Siga and immediately get picked off in this episode? Or should I flip and try and do something crazy?
And by the way, not even necessarily flip, just weigh my options, truly.
Be willing to implode Siga.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what she should do. That's not what she's going to do, though. She's going to try and stick with Siga. And, you know, if you want to put up that front at after the Tribal Council, which that's fine. You want to do that right when you get to the merge with everyone around, like, sitting in the shelter. That's, like, fine. But as soon as you start going off one-on-one, make the new connections. You are on the bottom of Siga. Might as well move on and try and do something else. Because otherwise, you might be out now.
One thing we need to remember as well, and by the way, just from an editing standpoint, I loved how Tribal Council opened up with Jeff using the word juxtaposition and Tevin calling out Jeff's use of the word juxtaposition. And the first thing we get is Mariah. Should I be Siga strong or should I be Mariah strong? It's just juxtapositions. That was the through line for this episode. Really enjoyed that. Mariah, if you do make it to the end, Siga strong, at this point you should realize you're not going to win. Because no one is going to see the game as yours. Because you're not driving what Siga does because you were on the bottom. You have to, at the very least, find a way to shake this up. And in fact, it might behoove you to get some Siga on the jury early and maybe get them rooting for an underdog.
And I hate to give her credit for this because there will be more to say about this person later, I think, but you kind of have to do a little bit of what Venus is going to do. And you know, we're not even there yet, but just put yourself out there a little bit more. Don't, you know, make yourself a target because of that.
Yeah, we have two sides of the spectrum here, with Venus being much more aggressive, which we'll talk about. I have a fun comparison that you guys won't get, but some people might. And then you have Mariah, who doesn't do much at all. And you need to find a healthier balance if you're on the bottom of your tribe going into the merge. You don't want to be like chaotic flipper aggro, and you don't want to do nothing.
I love the word aggro. But yeah, Venus and Mariah are juxtaposed once again, completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Venus is like, I will blow up anything. I don't care.
There's terrorism and pacifism. We want a healthy in between.
I mean, I'm gonna stop shy at terrorism, but like, there's aggro and dormant, and there's somewhere in the middle here where both of these castaways needed to find.
But we're gonna go into mergatory here. Everyone's got to drop their buffs, and this is the key phrase for Hunter because he found the Beware advantage. He hasn't been able to go after the idol because they haven't lost a challenge yet. So basically, once drop your buffs is given to them, he has 10 minutes to go back to his idol box, his Beware advantage box. There's a new clue waiting for him. It's a riddle. And basically it tells them where the key is, and it's hidden in the staircase at their camp. There's a little bit of stairs from the beach to the camp. So he's got to go find that, go back and open his box and get the idol before the other tribes arrive. Otherwise, he doesn't get it, it sounds like, and loses his vote. I'm guessing for just a tribal council. It's a little hard to say. We don't get to read the whole note, but Hunter is successful in getting this, so he does get the idol before the other tribes arrive.
Yeah, it is noticeable how different Hunter's parameters, I guess, are compared to the other two people who need to find their idols. They're giving hours to do it because they basically have until tribal council. He has 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't love this. I think he should get a reward for not having to go to tribal council, and he's just given the clue.
Do you think they changed the clue at all? Because I will say it did seem like his clue was a little bit easier than everyone else. You know, you had Jem measuring machetes across the island, whereas Hunter just had to dig underneath the stairs a little bit.
It was easier, but he had less time.
Yeah.
So, you know, they 100% changed the clue. 100%.
Okay. Then I'm a little bit more okay with it then.
I would say they had contingencies in place for all three beaches, and it's like, all right, cool. Nami Beach never went to tribal. Employ the contingency.
So while Hunter's doing this, right next to camp, we have Venus and Soda who get into this big dumb fight. It's not that big. It's a dumb fight. Because Venus basically brings up the fact that they haven't been talking as much recently. She's like, oh, Hunter, what do you think of Hunter right now? What's going on in his brain? So it's like, I don't know. Why don't you ask him? She's asking for your opinion, Soda. Calm down. Yeah, just everybody calm down. This is dumb. This is just dumb.
What's beautiful, though, you always have to read into these moments. Unfortunately, as a viewer, we don't know if that's Soda being impulsive, impatient, maybe a little bit aggro in her own right, or if Venus really is insufferable about talking strategy around camp, constantly trying to sow seeds of discord and distrust. And she's like, I'm done with this. I'm done watching you try to implode Nami. We are literally trying to gather up and go to a beach now. We need to be more united than this, and clearly you're gone. You're too far gone.
That's what happens when you have a tribe who does go to tribal council.
Yes, it is.
Given how Venus reacted and talked to everyone after they ended up merging, I'm going to go with it's probably the second one of your two options there, Derek.
I think it's more likely, but, you know, the recipe for an explosive situation, there's usually a couple catalysts, and I do think we've seen some of that from Soda, whether it was snapping at Q for no reason earlier in the season, or even just like that, not outburst, but she was a little bit overexcited when Jeff was like, she's like, what? And Jeff's like, this isn't new. What are you talking about? So I think Soda's a big personality, and I think Venus might be a little overly strategic on her camp. So bad from both.
But yeah, Venus, she's ready to make a move. She's ready to make some big moves-itis. She's talking to basically everybody, trying to feel out people and stuff like that. Tevin's going to try to warn Q and Tiffany against Venus, like, hey, don't trust her. So Q, obviously, he's going to see these cracks in this Nami group. But he's kind of okay with this because he's got this Journey 6 alliance that he's made up, the Don't Stop Believin' Journey alliance, which is Q, Hunter, and Tim and their closest ally, each Tiffany, Maria, and Tevin.
I think they like to call it the +1 alliance.
I like Tim's name for it better, the +1 alliance.
The +1 alliance, either one works. So right off the bat, Hunter, Q, Tevin, and Tiffany, they're all 100% on board. They're good with this. They're a little wary of Tim and Maria because the Siga alliance, the tribe, seems so tight. So Q is going to talk to Maria first, checks in with her, and she has no idea what the heck Q's talking about. Tim has not told her about this alliance. Shades of Tokenshien's the Exile Alliance, where Brennan never told Aaron about the Exile Alliance. So I can't remember if it was Steven Fishback or Taj who went to talk to Aaron about this Exile Alliance. And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And like, oh, okay, we can't trust Brennan. I guess Brennan will go home at the first vote after the merge.
This was the exact same situation that I was thinking about as well. And Maria's answer, it was funny watching her try and tease this apart in real time. Oh, Tim said I'm his number one. Well, you know, that means something different to everybody, doesn't it? But I suppose whether you like it or I like it, we're here now.
It's like, what is going on?
So Q's be like, hey, Tim, did you tell Maria about the alliance? He's like, nah, not yet. I will, though. And Q's rightfully concerned. That's not great, Tim. If you're going to tell people, like, there's a plan in an alliance, you need to make sure those people know there's a plan in an alliance.
It makes me think that Tim was never really on board with the +1 alliance, and he was just caught in a bad spot, which, you know, we credited Q, like, oh, good job, Q, for just kind of putting these people in the bad spot. But I feel like that makes it, it just kind of shows us that Tim just kind of threw out a name, wasn't really sure what was going on. Just like, sure, if it works out in the end, but didn't really think of, oh, we're going to merge and this is going to come back around and I'm going to have to be ready for it. I feel like it just kind of like went into his mind and went right out after the journey.
One thing that's nice, though, is if Tim is truly trying to go Siga strong, he didn't close the door on the +1 alliance. But if you're going to bring in Maria's name, whenever you bring someone into something without their permission, you should either lie if you can, or make sure you at least tell them about it. Like, hey, I wasn't going to be caught flat-footed, so we don't have to do this. Don't feel pressure to do it. Let's talk about it. But this came up.
His reasoning was he wanted to let Maria make like the judgment call on her own. It's like, yeah, she can give you her perspective, but she needs that information.
Yeah, that timing doesn't work.
You're doing her no favors by having her be blindsided by Q.
Nope. Yeah, this is bad. And if I'm Q, I want to take out all of Sega now because I don't want to do this journey thing anymore. I want to get with Nami and their dysfunctional crap and keep them and get rid of Sega.
Yes, that motley crew.
Yeah, his conclusion can basically just be like, Nami, but still have those two people from the journey that you do know that you can trust. It's like, okay, those two are at the top of Nami.
Yeah. At least whittle Sega down to something healthy before you take out a Nami. If you're a Yanu, because you also don't want to be outnumbered by Nami.
Right, but if you're outnumbered by Nami and they're dysfunctional, it might work out okay.
It might work out okay, but I think there is a more certain path to the end. But for right now, you got to be wary of those Segas.
So Venus is going to talk to Mariah and Tim, and basically she says, I want a name for a name. Like, I'll throw out a name if you throw out a name. Name for a name.
This is some mafia stuff.
And I hate this. So I'm going to reference a movie called Spree, which stars Joe Keery, who is Steve on Stranger Things. Mama Steve.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Love Joe Keery. He is the lead in Spree, and basically his character wants to be an influencer, social media personality, but he's also kind of psychotic. So that's kind of the movie is about, is his descent into madness and the strive for fame. And what he likes to do is he's an Uber driver, even though it's a different company. It's a fictional company. He'll get into conversations with people, and he'll be like, let's do a follow for follow. I'll follow you, you follow me. And everyone's like, that's so awkward. Why would you say that? Nobody says that in real life, follow for follow. And that's what it reminded me of, name for a name. You don't say that. You don't say that directly. You can think that, like, you don't want to throw out a name until somebody else throws out a name. You can think that, but you don't say that. It's just a weird thing to say, and it reminded me a lot of the character from Spree.
It made me think of two different things. One, it made me think of Mulan, a life for a life, my debt is repaid. And it also made me think about, is that season 4 of Fargo where the two mafia families, they trade children to make sure that there's no war between them?
Yep, season 4.
So I was thinking about season 4 of Fargo, no bias there because, live in Fargo or anything like that. Good show, check it out. Season 4 is not the best, but it's
Season 4 is not very good, and I haven't seen season 5 yet.
I have not seen season 5 yet.
I
haven't seen any of them.
Worth watching, especially if you're from Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Most of it takes place in Minnesota.
All right.
Season 4 is Kansas City.
Season 4 is Kansas City. They don't go to Minnesota at all in season 4. They mention it once.
Yep.
We should do a Fargo podcast. Fargo and Fargo.
It makes sense. Fargo squared.
The one thing I'll say about Sega here, or really anyone not named Venus who she's trying to talk to, is hear what she's saying and know when she talks about name for a name, you don't need to give a name because she just played her hand.
Yep.
Like, she is promising to give you a name on who they want to vote out to figure out, you know where the fractures are then in Nami. Great. You don't need it now. She just showed you where the fractures are. It's with her.
Yeah, yep. You are the fracture.
And everybody sees that.
Look at me. I'm the fracture now.
So you can either, if you wanted to take down Nami, you can either take Venus with you or get the rest of the tribe to turn on Venus. You got it. Dysfunctional. People see Venus as a threat. She's playing hard. So Q, he sees Sega. They're playing their cards close to the chest. They're coming off as a united front. Mariah is sticking with them. They're all saying it was a unanimous vote to get rid of Gem. So Q tries to talk to Mariah. And, he sees, they both see each other's playing very hard. But they start talking about, Q's asking, like, who's your favorite Survivor player? And Mariah says Aubry, and Q's like, "Oh, she's got to go. That means she's a threat. Her favorite player is Aubry. She's got to go." So, let's talk about this because I do have a theory, a personal theory, that your favorite Mario character. I like to ask people who their favorite Mario character is, and your answer tells me a lot about you. That's my theory, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far in life. And I sort of think, does this apply to Survivor as well? Does your favorite Survivor player tell something about you?
It's something worth knowing.
I think so. Q believes so. So if you're asked this question, which you probably will be, a lot of super fans, who's your favorite Survivor player? Who do you say? Well, my answer is Tony Vlachos, and I'm not saying that because that would be a red flag in my opinion. It's the same thing. My favorite Mario character is Waluigi. Look, I love Waluigi, but I recognize that's a red flag.
So Ryan, on a first date, if someone asks you what your favorite Mario character is, what are you going to say?
I always say Waluigi because I like to be honest, but I like to show. This is what I always say.
It's more of a third date confession.
Third date confession.
It's a big news here.
I always say Waluigi and Yoshi. Those are my top two. Yoshi is the correct answer. That's the least problematic answer for Mario is Yoshi. So there's a tip there. If you say Yoshi, that's good. So I'll say Waluigi and Yoshi. It's true But one is better than the other. For Survivor characters,
Ryan is wearing a purple shirt, literally right now.
Purple and blue.
That does not, again,
With flames on it.
That does not tease you apart from Waluigi at all.
For Survivor characters, don't say Tony. Don't say Russell Hantz.
Don't say Boston Rob.
Don't say Boston
Don't
Rob.
say Kim.
So, Derek, who's your favorite?
And this, lucky for me, and we talked about this mid-episode, or I should say during the commercial break, my favorite Survivor player is Keith Nail. The man was not very good at the game of Survivor, and I know enough to say that. I love him because he was a genuine, real guy out there having a good time with his son, with his friends, and generally making people feel good. And I adore that. I think Keith Nail might be one of the least problematic answers.
I agree. I think that's a great answer.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, who's yours?
I've never really had a favorite player. I've always kind of gravitated towards someone like Jeremy. Yeah. I don't really have a great reason. He's just been really enjoyable to watch. Helps that, he's a former winner, but, it's never really been like, like a Boston Rob or someone.
Didn't you pick Jeremy in Winners at War?
I did.
For your winner?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This checks out.
And you did in Cambodia as well. You've done it twice.
Yep.
I did in San Juan del Sur, but whatever.
Mm.
I think Jeremy isn't as bad as saying like Boston Rob or Tony. I still think it's bad because he's a very competent, dangerous player.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, someone like Ozzy might be a good choice because you just like, unless you're like a huge athletic guy. If you're a jungle guy, don't say Ozzy. Say Keith. But otherwise say someone like Ozzy just because, he's famous for just being a good fisherman and a challenge threat. And people nowadays in the metagame don't take Ozzy very seriously as a competent player. Even though he is somewhat strategic, I think someone like Ozzy, a challenge beast, is a safe pick.
And we also mentioned Rupert as
Rupert would be good.
As a very good pick.
Someone like that. Don't say Tony. Don't say Aubry. Don't say Kelly Wentworth. Don't say Parvati. Don't say Boston Rob. Don't say the people like that.
And because I want people to be able to be themselves out there, if you find yourself in the situation, homework right now, why don't you make a list of 5 of your favorite Survivor castaways, but try and make them as different as possible, and then think about which one is the least problematic.
And not in like a problematic way.
Well,
but like,
I mean, possibly.
Okay, possibly, but like threatening.
Yes. Like what do other people see that you value in your choice?
Like if one of your favorites is Pastor John from Thailand, don't say that either.
Don't say Brandon Hands.
Don't say Brandon Hands. Don't say Dan from Island of the Idols.
Yeah, there are.
How about like a coach? Coach could work.
Coach would be a good one, just because he's so wacky. That's perfect.
Yeah,
now,
he is a character. Yeah.
Now is Tyson too far?
I would stay away from Tyson. I love Tyson, but Tyson's a dangerous player.
I think Tyson's a dangerous player, and if you say, "Oh, I love him because he's into podcasts," well, now you're a huge super fan who listens to podcasts.
Yeah, don't say Rap Sister Nino either, because then you're a super fan.
Yep.
People know you listen to podcasts.
Yep. So, there's a lot of things. You can say your favorite future Survivor player is Derek Kubicek. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, you could say yourself. If you wanted to be charming, you could say, "You're my favorite Survivor player."
Do you want to know what Tony would say?
I'd vote you out for that.
Tony would say, Tony Vlachos.
Me.
Who else am I supposed to say?
That was very Mario. It's me.
Look, they're not that different. New Jersey, New York, same place. So we're going to go to the Mergatory Challenge. We're going to get divided into 2 groups of 6. The winning team is going to get immunity and food. They earn the merge. One person sits out. They pick a tribe and win or lose with that group. So the yellow, it's very lopsided. Yellow group has one guy, Charlie, and the rest are all women. Mariah, Soda, Maria, Liz, and Venus. The purple group is the opposite. All guys, one girl. Kenzie, Ben, Q, Hunter, Tim, and Tevin. And Tiffany gets the gray rock, but she's going to end up picking the purple group. Purple wins, but it is pretty close. It all comes down to the puzzle.
Yeah, they're able to make up quite a bit of ground. It's the classic how you can see each other, you see each other's puzzle, copy them. The one thing I do really like that they implemented this season for this one is that everyone had to
everyone has to work
participate.
On a puzzle. Speaking of copying puzzles,
oh boy.
You guys been on Survivor Twitter lately?
And by lately, literally today, Wednesday.
This might not be evergreen, but it'll be a fun one for future listeners to dig out of the archives, I suppose.
Oh, Carson. Not great, Bob.
We'll just leave it at that.
We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, go on Twitter and read about the all the controversy going on with Carson. It's interesting.
Funny enough for our listeners, Ryan and I had no idea. Our social media correspondent had to come back from vacation before we learned about this.
Because Derek and I don't go on Twitter.
Yes.
It's like, I know you guys don't go on Twitter, but you might want to log on and see a little something going on.
I did.
And I did not. I let Ryan and Josh share all the good
It's
parts.
hard to distract Ryan during a Survivor episode, but I think I did my job.
Yeah. Look, I got to pay attention. Everything else is secondary. So, we're going to get back to camp. 2 groups go off. 1 group goes to eat. The other group does not. Hunter is going to reveal at the feast that he can't vote. But the good news is for that group is Tevin has an extra vote. So, Tevin can step in for Hunter if need be. But basically, everyone at this feast they ask them all to throw out a name. And the Nami group, they're going to throw out Venus. Easy. But the Sega group does not want to throw out a name. Ben and Tim are here. They do not want to throw out a name. Eventually they're like pushed and like, you guys got to say somebody. And they eventually throw out Mariah's name. But they're all going to, everyone's like, they were so reluctant to throw out a name that it makes you want to get rid of one of them and break them up. They're clearly close. Yeah, that's the right call. It's one thing to want to be Sega strong, but if you don't know the numbers, you got to be willing to sacrifice people. And to hold it together like that is a red flag.
And their reasoning wasn't even like, oh yeah, like if we went back to tribal, Mariah would be next, and they also didn't give out the information about her being the only one outside of the vote. Their reasoning was, she's very knowledgeable on the game. And then Q actually can corroborate this based off of his conversation earlier. I don't think they knew that he had that conversation with her, but it just isn't a good enough reason for this group.
So I want to linger on this for just a little bit, because I think this is maybe a key point that's revisited quite often on our podcast. We always talk about how the group that is more united is the one that typically comes out on top. And I think that's always the right initial strategy. But in correlation to that, we also say if someone comes to you with an alliance proposition, you say yes. There are a lot of little Survivor rules that you need to make sure you're following to put yourself in a position for success. Sega was not saying yes to the latter. So I don't think that we've been wrong in what we've been saying. No. I think there's a difference in being privately strong, but publicly playing an individual game. And Sega was just publicly strong and privately wanted to be strong and were strong for all intents and purposes, but that got them into trouble the second it became an individual game, because everyone else immediately recognized like, there's the Goliath. We better take that down now or this is going to be a problem.
It's like seeing a strong pair. It's an obvious pair, and you're like, oh, we got to do something with that. Well, this is an obvious 5 that is strong, and they're acting like it. You can't do that. You have to put up the facade of wanting to turn on anyone, even if it's not true at this moment. So yes, we do say that the most cohesive group will probably win, but you want to keep that hidden a little bit.
You have to play good Survivor along the way, because otherwise it's not good Survivor. That's not intelligent gameplay.
You have whatever conversations you need to have, and then everyone comes back together and makes a plan together. That's what you do.
I think it would also be a lot different too if the tribe makeup with the random rock jaw would have been a little bit different.
Sure.
If there would have been one Yanu out there, I think that this could have been okay then too, because you have a different person to deflect on. The makeup here, like, there's so few people who are good eligible contenders to be voted out, where it just, like you guys are saying, it just doesn't work as well in this situation.
So basically, it's Venus or Mariah going, and it's leaning Mariah just because people are scared of how tight Sega is. So Tiffany is going to tell Venus this. Hey, like, it's got to be Mariah or it's you. And Venus decides this is a good time to try and take a hold of the vote and try and turn it against Charlie. Which, okay, that could work, except for the fact that she's going to say she doesn't want a girl to go home yet. And that information gets to the guys. And I gotta say, as a guy, that's the last thing I want to hear. And that makes me want to vote out Venus more. So I'm a Q or a Tevin. I'm like, okay, cool. Venus is going. So yeah, Venus, I think she's got to, she doesn't want Mariah to go. You got to let her go.
Yeah, and Ryan, one of the things that you said is that it's okay to throw out a different name like Charlie, as long as you don't, have the reasoning be, I don't want a woman to go. It doesn't have to be, I don't want a woman to go. It could be a number of things that she shouldn't be saying with that.
If it is that reason, though, you don't want a woman to go, you don't say that.
Yes.
To anyone.
I would almost argue that she shouldn't even be throwing out another name at all. Like, if it is truly between her and Mariah, and this is what they're telling you after the merge feast, just like, hey, just so you know, like, it's one of you guys two tonight. We want Mariah, so vote Mariah.
Yep.
Just go with it.
I'm gonna step in because I want to, like, let's take an audit of where Venus is at in the game. Where do we all currently have her?
Can't win.
Cannot win.
Can't win.
This is her chance for a new beginning.
Sure.
Okay.
So I think she does have to take this vote, but she can't, like Ryan said, you can't say, I will not vote a woman. What she needs to do is she needs to go to this group and say, Siga didn't want to give a name. We forcefully extracted Mo. Why don't we take out Charlie instead? Because that means Charlie is more integral to what they're trying to accomplish as a tribe. If the goal of this vote is to weaken Siga and to kind of stick it to them for not working with us, I think we should do that. And even if she does end up getting the target painted on her back, we already have her as a who cannot win. She needs to take that big swing now to get herself back into the game. But the way she sold it, by basically alienating half of the remaining players, that's bad.
Yeah, you can put the feelers out to try and move on to Charlie, but just be careful with your reasoning, and if you get too much pushback, give it up.
And I agree that surviving another day is important, but I also think Venus being where she's at right now needs to take big swings.
There's plenty of time to take big swings there.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's why I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, I like push it pretty hard, but ultimately
not pretty
relent.
hard. Push it then stop.
I say pretty hard.
I wonder if, just thinking about what you're saying, Derek, because I think that is really important. It kind of changed my mind a little bit. That this is such a pivotal part of Venus's game to try to be able to win. If that is what she's trying to do and really just try to take control of the game, why is she trying to take out a member of Siga? Why isn't she trying to take out like Soda? Because it's very clear that she's not able to work with the rest of Nami here. Why doesn't she, completely change her game?
Because she didn't get a name for a name.
And I would say, based on my theory, all you're trying to do is slightly adjust the target. You're not saying, hey, I want to blow up Nami, you guys want to blow up Siga. No, everyone agrees that Siga is the target here. You're just like redirecting it slightly, like, hey, we don't have to listen to Siga. We don't have to take their word for it.
Even she's like, yeah, they're too close. So even she's like, yeah, we got to take out one of them.
Okay.
To have a chance. We're going to go to Tribal Council, where Mariah reveals that the last Tribal Council was not actually unanimous. She was on the bottom. She was left out of the vote. And people rightfully point out, it's a little late for that. This is not something you reveal at Tribal Council. This is something you reveal before Tribal Council to try and shift the target. So, yeah, too little too late for Mariah here.
She had plenty of opportunity.
The whole episode.
Yeah, literally.
She does play her shot in the dark, is not safe. Hunter doesn't vote, but and obviously Mariah doesn't vote. Everyone votes for Mariah except for Charlie, who I'm assuming just threw a shot in the dark backup vote on Venus. So, was this the right move? I think before Venus started blowing things up a little bit, yes, we can see ya. If the vote did get changed to Venus because of what she was saying, I'd be fine with it, but the fact that it ended up not changing, I'm also fine with. So I'll say yes, this was the right move.
I said no only because of what she ended up saying to the guys there, where she didn't want a woman to go home. To me, massive red flag. I think it should have been Venus here. I do understand that you don't want Siga to completely stick together. At this point, you know that Mariah is a little bit on the outs, so Siga isn't completely rock solid. Siga is strong, and you should still have the numbers on top of them, even with Venus going home.
I want to point out for you, Josh, they did not know before Tribal that Mariah was on the outs.
True.
And you don't. This is not that is not information that turns this into a live Tribal.
Right.
And clearly there was unanimity. They had come to a unanimous.
Yeah.
They'd come to a consensus. everyone.
I even without that information, if you take out Venus, if you're combining Nami and Yanu, they would still have enough for the numbers, though.
Right. I think this is the right move. I also think, and I think it's because they don't take Venus seriously. I don't think anyone is going to take Venus seriously at this point. So therefore, I would have been fine with Venus going home, Mariah going home. I think the only wrong move would have been to go with Venus and send home Charlie.
Right.
Because ultimately, a woman did go home, and you got to keep someone who's still on the outs with her own tribe. You get to keep the fracture, and you get to keep someone who, by all accounts, everyone feels like they can beat.
And you weaken Siga.
Yes, and you weaken Siga. So all boxes checked here. All the fires contained, it seems.
What did Twitter say?
It was pretty close here. 53% of people said that, yes, the right person went home.
Twitter gets it right.
Barely.
Just barely. All right. That's the episode. Let's get a best and worst player of the episode. Derek, starts off. Who is the best player of the episode?
I had Q again. I think he played really well in gathering information on the Merge Beach. He followed up with the +1 alliance. He even followed up with the member who didn't know anything about it and seemingly was able to bring her in. So, I mean, someone has to galvanize something, and there was at least no blowback on Q for it this episode. People might see him as playing too strong or trying to play his own game. We saw a little bit of a hint of it on the next week on Survivor. We did not get that yet, so I'm saying Q.
You make a good argument, and you made me think about it for a second, but I'm going to stick with my original. I'm going Hunter here. And he found the idol, and he got through having no vote. Yeah, he was completely safe, so, like, that's fine, but, like, that disadvantage part of his game is now gone. Someone from Siga went home. It seemed like he helped drive a little bit of that. The one thing with Q that I didn't necessarily like as much is it did seem like he was trying to be really controlling with everything, and he was a little bit more confrontational with Tim. Tim deserved it.
And Mariah.
and Mariah. But even if someone deserves your confrontation like that, doesn't mean that you actually should. So I'm going to ding him a little bit for that. And that's just enough for me with Hunter.
I agree with everything you guys said. I think those are both really good takes. I did end up giving Q my honorable mention and my best player to Hunter, but I thought they were both really, really strong. And yeah, your ding is also my reason. Plus Hunter got an idol, which is huge. So Hunter's my best player of the episode. Honorable mention to Q. Worst player, Josh, who do you have?
I've been going back and forth. This one is the really, really, really hard one for me. Ultimately, I'm going to give it to Venus just because I think that she was a little bit reckless here. Derek's done a really good job trying to convince me otherwise, and I'm still really close. Strong dishonorable mention to Tim because I think he just completely mishandled what could have been a potential, just, alliance. Even if it doesn't end up working out, it's just kind of sitting there at least as a backup plan. Think of it that way, in case stuff with Siga doesn't work out. I think that Venus probably should have been going home tonight, and it would have been completely her own doing for it. So even though she didn't go home when she probably should have, I'm still going to give it to her.
Yeah, I agree. Venus and Tim are the two. Dishonorable mention to Tim. I'm going to end up giving it to Venus just because she almost got herself voted out by saying the quiet part out loud of her plan by wanting to not get rid of a woman and get rid of a guy instead.
I have Venus, and I'm not, and I know that might seem confusing because I agree with her move to do it, but ultimately because of who she is as a Survivor player and the way it comes out, it's still 3 big swings at the plate and an out. So she struck out with her tribe, and now I think she is struck out with the merged group as well, and I don't think anybody takes her seriously at this point on.
Could I also just say it bothered me because she said it multiple times. It's like, because she kept talking about like, oh, like, look at all these guys. They're safe over there. Like, they're all like going to be coming for the women. It's like, you do understand that this was a random rock jaw, right? Like, this wasn't a 6-person men's alliance that just steamrolled this mergatory challenge. That's not what happened here. Yeah. This isn't an alliance you have to be worried about. And it just kind of annoyed that she was using that as a reason because it just didn't matter.
All right. I lost my winner pick.
Womp womp.
Mariah's gone. I have to move on to someone new. I just like I said during our who would I switch to if I could during the last episode, I'm going to keep that the same. I'm going to switch to Tiffany. I really like her chances. Maria I just don't see enough screen time from her. Charlie's definitely more the focus of that duo. But I consider Charlie, but I'm gonna switch to Tiffany.
I think it's a reasonable pick.
All right. Let's get into who's going next. And what we know is 2 people are going home next time. I'm assuming they're going to get split in half into groups of 6. And the first half, that person gets voted out, doesn't make the jury. But the person at the second tribal council does. That's what we did last season. So that's my guess. But we're going to lose 2 people here. We have no idea what the splits are going to be. So this is literally a shot in the dark.
Pun intended.
I mean, our 2 people could be on the same tribe and it'd be impossible for both of them to go home. But we're going to do it anyway because it's fun. I'll start us off with my 2. Venus is the obvious one just because she's causing too many problems. My other one, I don't know. I'm going to give it to Tim just because I think Q is a little scared of Tim now. And maybe they'll want to just break up Siga some more. So I have Venus and Tim as the 2 going next time.
Yeah, I weirdly enough, I kind of went exactly in the opposite direction to the 2 people who are on the opposite side of those issues. So I have Soda, who hates Venus, and I have Q, who is wary of Tim. Again, there's no particular reason for this. I think a 6-on-6 is a good time to take out a challenge beast, and there's enough that I think that one of the challenge beasts is going to get targeted, and Hunter has an idol. So I think it could be Q. There's no other reason for that. And then Soda has a big personality, so I don't know, man.
The reason I didn't pick Q is because he was shown being in trouble the next time on Survivor. So I always do the opposite of what that says. I follow Hibicki's law.
Hibicki's theory.
Yes.
Hibicki's law.
Call it what you want.
Well, I also have Venus for one of mine. Chaotic person, just take her out of the equation, especially when it's small tribes. They're going to be looking for an easy vote. The other one is actually the person that I had going this week, and that's Kenzie. And this is a great opportunity, since I wasn't on the podcast last week, to be able to say why. Because I think that she is going to be seen as someone like Caleb was last season. And since this, the Castaways on this season have seen 44, the second time we've mentioned people from 44 this episode now, I think they're going to see that tight group of 3 coming into the merge as a threat, whereas before the Tika 3 just kind of like coasted through because no one saw them as that threat. It's going to be glaringly obvious to people this time around, and I think they're going to try to pick one of them off. It could be Q, like Derek is saying, but I think we're going to get Banu's kind of payoff from the beans that he spilled during the journey. People are going to see Kenzie as a threat, and it's going to be an easy one to try to pick off in that way.
Banu's beans.
Banu's beans. The ultimate payoff.
All right. Let's get into who can't win. That's next. Last week, all 3 of us had Venus and Liz. Does that change at all, Derek?
It does not.
Who wins in the final 2 then?
I changed my mind.
Okay.
I have Liz beating Venus. I think the way she's played the game has rubbed too many people the wrong way. And we have seen no negative footage of Liz on wow, she's being unfair in the game of Survivor. And I think if you get 26 days of this, that's going to be grating enough to where at least if Liz makes it to the end and there's a lot of Nami and it's Liz and Venus that they have to choose between, Nami votes are breaking for Liz, I think. So I have Liz and Venus, but I swapped them. But I have a new fork to stick. We didn't talk about it last week. I had Q with a fork stuck in him. This week I have added Tim. I don't think there's a way he gets to the end with a Venus and Liz combo, however that looks. And after seeing today that, Maria being his number 1 and he was Maria's number 3, maybe, I just don't think the social connection is there for him to get enough votes at the end. So he's my new stick a fork in him. I do think that he can beat Venus and Liz. If that happens, I just don't think it happens.
I have Liz and Venus. I'm sticking with Venus beats Liz at the end just because I feel like there's going to be some sort of respect level there. They're going to dislike Venus more, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take votes away from her. I think there's going to be strategic moves that will need to be made in the meantime if these 2 are at the end together. And I'm going to side with Venus.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. There's no way this happens. There's no way this happens. And maybe Liz is more well-liked, but she's not doing anything. Venus is trying, so I'll give her credit for that. Is bad better than nothing? Depends on the situation.
That's for the castaways to decide.
I mean, what's the summo of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Like someone who did nothing versus someone who was incredibly strategic but was a jerk.
And that's insulting to Natalie.
I should say, like, within the broader scope of the edit, I'm not trying to insult Natalie,
Okay.
and I'm a Natalie stan on this. I truly am. But, like, that's going to be the comparison.
Okay. All right. So let's check in with the survivor pool. Last thing we got to do. Last week I had Liz, who survived the episode. Derek, you had...
I had Hunter.
Okay. So we're both still alive in the survivor pool, so we have to pick somebody new that we haven't picked yet to survive the next episode. The rules for next time, because it's a double boot. Let's say... let's say I have Liz, you have Hunter.
Yes.
And Liz goes out in the first tribal council, but Hunter goes out in the second tribal council. I lose, Derek, you win. It's if that's what happens, if we both lose our players next week, the person who makes it to the second tribal council wins our survivor pool.
Yes.
So who have I picked so far, Josh?
Ryan, you have picked Tiffany, Maria, Tevin, Charlie, and Liz. So no one who has been voted out yet.
So my new pick, I like to make the safest picks possible. Hunter got an idol in this episode. I'm going with Hunter.
I'm so shocked.
And I need to be as safe as possible. So, I mean...
Who has Derek picked so far?
Derek has picked Q, Liz, Charlie, Mariah, and Hunter.
So, I have one extra name. I'm one up on Ryan. Mm-hmm. But I'm picking Tiffany. This is exactly why I saved the people with hardware. I wanted to get through Mergatory, and I wanted to get through whatever nonsense this is.
Good pick.
Every once in a while, you come to a juncture where either you don't know the alliances, or you don't know the game mechanics. They were nice enough to tell us, we're voting 2 people out. And I'm like, I have somebody left with an idol. Now's the time.
All right. That's the episode. Let's get about some social media.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Castaway Pod. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook are all Castaway Consultants, which is where we're going to be posting our videos. And a little bit of update there with YouTube. So for those of you who do listen to the podcast on Google Podcasts, apparently they're getting rid of it. And it's moving over to something called YouTube Watch. So go ahead and follow us on there. We have linked our podcast to that section as well. So whether or not you watch the videos or just want to listen on YouTube, you can do it either way on that side of things. And then we also do have a website, which is the Castaway Consultants, if you want to check out any of the podcasts there, along with Ryan's blog.
And of course, over on Spotify, check out the questions. But more importantly, I want to revisit the results from last week. I put up a poll for who was your best of the pre-merge. My options were Maria, Tiffany, Charlie, Hunter, or Other. And I am pleased to say that Other got exactly 0 votes. But Tiffany ended up being the highest of the rest, but all received more than 1 vote.
Okay.
So all votes were plural, but Tiffany received the nod for best of the pre-merge. Fairly given, well-deserved, and Ryan's new winner pick.
Dang right.
I'm sticking with Charlie. That's fine.
That's going to be wrong. All right, guys. Is there anything else that we missed?
I think so.
I don't think so.
All right. I hope not. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.